Hello everyone, my name is Loko and welcome to some more Heroes of the Storm. Today we're gonna have a first look at Li-Ming, the latest hero in the game that is currently available on the PTR. In this video I'll be showcasing all of the skills, I'll be going over all of the talents, the different heroic abilities, and we're gonna be doing a little bit of theory crafting and talk about what could potentially be really good when playing Li-Ming against actual people. Now I've played a couple of matches with her so far, and there's one thing I immediately absolutely loved about this hero. She is extremely high skilled, okay? Like, if you have a great player playing her, she will be able to dominate the battlefield. I mean, I've had moments where I actually clean up 3 other enemies just by myself, and there's really no other heroes in the game currently that can really carry a game like that. And that's one of the common complaints when playing Heroes of the Storm. It's like, well, you know, you can be incredible at the game, but if it's a 5v4 fight, generally speaking, you're just gonna end up losing anyway, right? It doesn't really matter the heroes, doesn't really matter the general skill level of those players either, because hey, it's just a numbers game in a lot of cases. Now, this hero seems to be a little bit different with that, and she's extremely powerful if played correctly. Now, she is going to be a ranged assassin, and we'll go over all of the abilities first. So, there's a couple of interesting aspects to her. First off, my health is very low. Obviously, for the other ranged assassins, that is basically the same, but her range or her health is really low, and with one of the talents, we can make it even lower, but make the damage output a little bit higher. Now, in general, obviously, also, we're just a very high damage output hero to begin with. Now, the first ability that we'll go over is the trait, and the trait is pretty interesting. Basically, getting a takedown will refresh the cooldown of all of the abilities that we got, and that actually includes the heroic ability as well that we'll go over in just a second. So if I manage to be involved in a fight and I manage to take someone down, immediately all these 3 abilities that I got here at the bottom will be refreshed, so I can keep on queuing them up. And those abilities, as you may have already guessed, are extremely powerful. So first off, I got my teleport ability. Teleport is literally just a teleport. It's a 5-second cooldown. It is just something you can use to dash around, and obviously, like, good players will be able to make good use of it, sort of like dash past objects and, you know, dash over objects as well, and just make sure you're out of range. Now, obviously, if you're getting chased down, this is going to be the key ability to get out of trouble, but also if you're trying to chase someone down, it can give you that edge to take them out even when they're trying to run away. So that one's pretty good. Then we have the W ability called the Arcane Orb, and this one actually has different stages, so I'll just throw it once just to sort of showcase what it does. You can see like that orb gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time, and actually it also does more damage the longer it has traveled. Now, it will explode on the first enemy that it gets touched. So let's say I'm standing relatively close to this dummy here and I throw the thing. It doesn't do very much damage there at all, but if I toggle the cooldown here really quickly and I hit the W ability for maximum range, you can see the damage is significantly higher, and that is the skill when it comes to his ability. Now, we also have the final one over here called the Magic Missiles, and the Magic Missiles are pretty interesting as well, because this is one of those abilities that is completely different. Like, it depends where I'm gonna be aiming them. It depends on where they're gonna be landing. So, look at this, for example, right? If I put them right next to me, the 3 missiles that it shoots by default are actually gonna go all over the place. However, if I wanna, for example, I'm chasing down Arthas right here, and I'm assuming he's gonna be here next, I can sort of like time that perfectly in order to make sure that he gets hit. And through talents, this becomes extremely powerful. Now, there's a couple of funny little things that happen in particular to the W ability. Since it does more damage that's ranged, right? It does more damage when I'm normally at ranged. It's actually pretty important that you back off if you're casting this ability. Because if you look at my basic attack range, if I do my maximum basic attack range, the W ability never is gonna do the maximum amount of damage it can. So I either teleport back and immediately cast, which puts you at the perfect amount of range, but obviously that costs mana. But that's one of the ways to do it. Or if you notice, hey, the cooldown's about to go off, I'll back up a little, wait for the circle, and then cast and go back in. There's a lot of skill involved with each and every one of those abilities. And obviously, the Q ability on its own is already tricky enough as it is. I mean, you need to aim that. And one very important thing to note as well is that it will not, like, go through a hero. So let's say I want to target fire these things. For example, right now, it's not actually gonna hit. I don't think any of the missiles are gonna end up hitting the minion in the back here. They will just hit the very first target, as you can see, just like that. And, you know, since it's gonna be hitting the very first target, let's say you're trying to fight a hero that is underneath a group of minions, you're gonna have a very hard time you know, hitting this ability. And I found it to be extremely powerful when used correctly, but when used incorrectly, it can be quite lethal. Now, for the last abilities, I'll just pick some talents here. We'll go over those in depth in just a second. But I want to be showing you the Wave of Force right here too, and the Disintegrate too. Disintegrate, probably the most fun ability in the game. If I toggle the cooldowns off, you will be able to see a little bit better what it does. We'll toggle the minions on as well. I will pick that one first. This one is basically a skill shot in a line, and if you've played Diablo 3, you've seen this one before, but this is awesome. Look at this. Look at this. That's so cool. And basically, once again, if I toggle it on, I can also aim it while this is going on. So, oh, hold on. So I can basically, like, point my mouse where I want it to go, and it does a heck of a lot of damage. Now, the default cooldown, as you may have already noticed, is 20 seconds. 20 seconds is like absolutely nothing, and considering I can do so much burst damage, you can very quickly see how much you can do when this hero, you know, gets into play. So that's the very first one. That's the very first one. We'll actually toggle the minions off again and actually just reset the talents here. Because again, just gonna pick a couple things. The Wave of Force, also extremely powerful, also a 20-second cooldown. And this one is this one's actually easier to cast. I haven't actually played this one yet in a real game, just because it's way too cool to mess around with the Disintegrate. But this one's actually really powerful too. Look at that. Since it's only a 20-second cooldown, and since the upgrade at level 20 is super good as well, you can get a lot of value out of the Wave of Force as well. I mean, it's basically a massive circle that you have range in. I mean, I could come here, I could dash forward and immediately cast the thing just like that, right? And the nice thing is that it actually pushes enemies back as well. So let's say, like, I see that he's trying to run away, I can sort of do it like that and, you know, force him backwards. There's a lot of skill once again with that one. But honestly, I would say the other one is just a little too much fun to mess around with. Now, I've messed around with a couple of different builds so far, and my first assumption was that the W ability and using a lot of the talents to upgrade that W ability is going to be the superior build. However, I find it to be kind of difficult. Since it does do AoE damage, you can obviously do a substantial amount of it, but it always explodes at the very first target hit. And like I mentioned, with that basic attack range, it's rather difficult to get it off. But also because because you always need to go back before casting it, it's very difficult to stay in the combat because you just either use, you just move back and you tried and using the ability that way. You're usually gonna lose track of the fight, so to say, because people always move around when they're fighting, and I find that pretty difficult to use. But for the very first one, for the very first talent selection, I'll probably be using the Arcane Orb. Now, another option that you can go for is obviously focus a lot more on single target damage instead and go with the magic missiles. I've actually managed to play a game where I did twice as much damage than a Kilthus. Alright, hero damage was twice as high as a Kilthus, just by focusing purely on the magic missiles. And you guys know, Kilthus is pretty freaking high. Now, that may also be due to the case that nobody was targeting me down, really. And obviously, it wasn't a perfect example, but it definitely does have a ton of potential. So, let's just go over all of the different tiers of talents that we have. So, I'll reset the talents here, and we'll have a look at all the tiers that are available. Now, I'll be noting right off the bat as well that there is no, like, guaranteed perfect build right off the get-go, okay? I've actually have a hard time, even when just playing this, like, try mode here, to figure out what the ideal talent selection is gonna be. So there's a lot of great options, there's also a couple of terrible ones, but we'll go over them. So first off, Astral Presence. Your mana regeneration is increased by 100% when you have less than 100% or less than 50% of your mana. Now this one is actually super good, especially early on into the game. I've noticed that if you cast these abilities a lot, you're gonna be running out of gonna be running out of mana, and obviously since you are gonna be very flimsy, you need to make sure you always can teleport things around. This is actually a surprisingly powerful talent that will obviously carry you from the early part of the game and gets a little weaker the longer the game goes on. Now we have Power Hungry as well, very unique concept here, or at least unique for me. Regeneration Globes restore 100% more mana, that's cool. But then also it grants 10% extra ability power, which is practically damage to all the skills that I got here for 20 seconds. So if you're on a map, for example, with a lot of lanes, such as, the Cursed Hollow and whatnot, where you're gonna be laning quite a lot, and usually you go from a lane into a battle, at the tribute, you can do quite a lot with the Power Hungry as well. Then we have the Force Armor. This one basically makes it so that when you use your Q ability, you will get a little bit more sustain. and you will take a little bit less damage. And I would say all these three first ones are pretty damn good. I've actually been running mostly with the Astral Presence because I like spamming abilities. But yeah, this one obviously falls off the longer the game goes because generally speaking, in the late game, you're not gonna have that much trouble managing your mana. Now the Aether Walker here, teleports cost no mana when out of combat. No, like it's okay, you know, but I mean, it's not a super high mana skill to begin with. And because you have so many great other options, you probably don't want to be going for the Aether Walker. Maybe I'm wrong though, but I mean, you know. The one thing though that you also get is that the cooldown is going to be reduced slightly when you set a combat, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I usually end up going with the Astral Presence. Probably want to give the other ones a try properly as well though before really sticking with a solid build. So the first talent here already gives tons of different options, depending on the team composition, depending on the map, depending on your allies and whatnot. Now, here we have a bit of a different option. So, you gotta keep in mind, my cooldowns reset whenever I kill an enemy. Now, that's great, but you first need to kill an enemy, right? So, most of the time, I've noticed that these talents that upgrade this passive are not that amazing. I mean, if I kill someone and I like jump in and I try to take the risk, I will get 25% of my health back when I kill them, but that's a huge risk. So I like, you know, guaranteed advantages rather than taking a risk and, you know, playing like an absolute maniac. I don't really like these type of talents, but they could potentially be extremely good. If you notice, you're great at picking off enemies. But since I'm not the greatest at that, I tend to stick with some of the others. So I've given a try to all three of those. The Ass of Johan. When Arcane Orb damages enemies, they are pulled towards its center. This one's pretty interesting. This isn't just like a pull into the center type ability where it like disrupts the enemies or like it moves or it prevents the movement of your enemies for just a second, but it also allows you to pull them away off of targets. You can actually even interrupt an ETC ultimate with this, and you know, there's a lot of like utility that you can have with this talent right here. Next, we also have the Triumvirate. I don't know. I don't know. If Arcane Orb hits an enemy after traveling at least 80% of its base range, the cooldown is reduced by 7 seconds. Now, this default cooldown, hold on, it's actually 10 seconds. So that's huge, right? You can basically keep on casting this ability as long as you make sure that it hits the enemy at 80% of its distance. I would say, like, for the first set of talents that I want to showcase here, we'll go ahead and pick that talent right now, because you can just keep on casting it, and especially after a couple more talent picks, the damage of the Arcane Orb then really starts stacking up. So that means you need to make sure it's always getting hit in that, you know, that 80% at the bare minimum, but you always just want to move back and then cast the ability either way. The last one, the Charged Blast. Basic attacking a target recently hit by magic missile deals an additional 191 damage, and that's pretty substantial too. This is obviously great for single target damage, whereas these two are a little bit better. Well, this one is great for utility, but I would say this one is great as well. You know, for just that extra cast of the W ability, as long as you're using it efficiently. Level 7. At level 7, things become a little more interesting. First off, we got Calamity. Calamity deals damage, or like teleport deals damage on impact. So let's say you're in a fight right now, I'm teleporting forward. Calamity will make it so that you deal additional damage on impact right there. That is okay, but I tend to be using the teleport mostly defensively because I'm a scaredy cat and I'm low HP, so I don't like taking risks once again, right? However, this is obviously a pretty solid option if you're gonna be taking damage. Now, I would say the other ones are a little bit better though, depending on the build that you're going for. So Zai's Vengeance, obviously another one of those things. Arcane Orb deals additional 25% more damage to enemies far away, but will deal 25% less damage to enemies up close. So since we're already focusing right here, you know, on that additional damage or additional cooldown reduction when we hit people at range, I generally end up going for this one anyway if I'm running this W build, just because, hey, you want to make sure you hit people on range anyway, and also just because it's, you know, it becomes more powerful. The other talent that we got over here is once again great if you're gonna be running a single target magic missiles type build. Seeker, if the 3 magic missiles hit the same target, the third one deals an additional 274 damage. Now, hitting 3 of the missiles into one target is rather difficult, but because we have a talent over here where we upgrade it to actually 5 missiles, it becomes really, really potential, especially later on into the game. So we'll see that in a little bit. Zai's Vengeance, though, if you're going to be running a W build, is obviously going to be superior. Now, at level 10, like I mentioned, Disintegrate, too much fun to mess around with. Extremely powerful, 20-second cooldown, not much there to say. Obviously, you may want to give the Wave of Force a try, but you know, if you're first starting off, I cannot imagine anyone picking Wave of Force just because the disadvantage rate looks a little bit too awesome to pass up. Now, at level 13, things become interesting. The first talent here is Glass Cannon, and you gotta keep in mind, we already are a Glass Cannon, okay? But Glass Cannon makes your abilities deal 15% more damage, but decreases your maximum health by 15%. Super good. Very powerful. Obviously, if you're not getting targeted very much and you're, you know, maybe running some of the teleport talents, Glass Cannon can become extremely good because you can sustain yourselves anyway. Now, on top of that, we also have the Illusionist, increases the teleport range by 50%, and if it loses more than, or if you lose more than 15% of your health at once, the cooldown of teleport is immediately refreshed. So, if you have trouble staying alive, Illusionist will help you out a ton right there, because you will just be able to teleport a lot more often and teleport further away. So, if you lose 15% of your health at once, you will be able to teleport away. Now, this is great, obviously, in a lot of scenarios. The one, though, that I've been favoring a lot is Cannoneer. When you use an ability, increases your next basic attacks by 75% and calls it to deal additional or ability damage. Stacks up to 3 times. So you gotta keep in mind, if they're running spell shields, this talent may not be all that great because, hey, it blocks ability damage. This can actually be really, really powerful. I've been favoring the Cannoneer when I'm running a Magic Missiles build, just because I'm pretty much always gonna be in basic attack range anyway. If you're running a W ability build though, the magic missiles are gonna be, you know, very difficult to land, or like, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to land to begin with, because you're gonna be, you know, fighting at a further range. But on top of that, you always need to move back when you're casting your W ability. So I'm assuming here, if you're running an Arcane Orb type build, Glass Cannon is probably gonna be better. If you're running a Magic Missiles type build, I can imagine the Cannoneer being superior, just because you're always gonna be, you know, in basic attack range anyway. You may be able to, like, find a mix of those two, though. I'm not sure what is best, but both of those seem to have a lot of potential. So, I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Glass Cannon right here. Next, we have Fireflies. Magic Missiles move faster with a lower cooldown. I find this one pretty terrible. I mean, I've messed around with it. Didn't really like it very much, just because you also have this great talent right here called Seeker that just increases the damage a lot if you manage to hit people with 3, which additionally, or just makes the Mirror Ball substantially more powerful. I mean, Magic Missiles fire 2 extra missiles. Once again, very, very great. We have Arcane Orbit over here. Arcane Orbit makes it so that once again, the W ability travels further and it deals 25% more damage. Okay, so look at the range right now, right? You seeing the range? If I pick this one, look at the range now. That's insane freaking range, okay? You can actually deal damage with this hero off of stupidly far away, and you can actually do a lot of it. I mean, we'll trigger some minions in just a second, but you'll notice how much damage the Arcane Orb can do. Last talent here, Diamond Skin, teleport grants a shield. Not something I want to be running because, hey, I don't want to run a tank, but, you know, maybe this could be good as well. Now, these level 20 talents are pretty interesting. So first off, we'll go over Repulsion just because that's a talent I did not pick. Increases the Wave of Force knockback distance by 150% and increases its cast range by 100, which basically means that when you're chasing someone down, you can put the Wave of Force behind them and basically burst them towards you. So this is great for chasing. Temporal Flux, disintegrate slows enemies, also pretty good. Not the one I would be picking though. I've actually been favoring either the Tal Rush's elements. Your abilities deal benefit 20% bonus damage as long as they aren't cast twice in a row, which basically means that you will get a little icon on top of your abilities here that will make it so that it's, you know, just becoming 20% stronger. And we'll actually be picking this one. In the next talent selection that I'll do, I'll go over the Archon and the Pure Power mode as well. So as you can see, like, now that we've picked the Tal Rush's elements, you can notice these little icons here at the bottom of the screen above my abilities. And basically this means that as long as I'm not casting abilities, like as long as I'm not casting Magic Missiles, for example, twice in a row, my abilities deal 20% more damage. So as long as I'm casting them, you know, back and forth just like this, for example, I will be in a great place. Now this also actually empowers your ultimate. So there's a lot of like cool things you can do, and Tal Rush's elements is super, super powerful. So right now we've been focusing a lot on maximizing the damage of the W ability, okay? So I'll toggle on some minions just to showcase to you how much it really is. Now notice, if I want to hit the lane, look how far I need to be, right? Look how far I need to be away from this. So we'll go ahead and throw the Magic Missile, or the Arcane Orb, and you can see that immediately exploded like a quarter of the health right there of Artis. Stupidly high damage. Stupidly high damage, right? Now, I can just follow him down as well. Obviously, it will still do damage at shorter range as well. It's just less powerful. It's just less powerful. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential here. You can notice I am definitely a glass cannon though, only having 2000 health right now at level 20. Definitely not the greatest. If I want to cast this though, I gotta keep in mind that I am, you know, using it effectively. Now also notice it explodes right on impact. So if I want to make sure that I hit everything, I want to make sure that I am basically there at all times and that I'm actually casting at the correct angle as well. Oh, get him! But yeah, that's the very first set of talents here that I find to be very good. However, the other ones that I've enjoyed a little bit more is going to be Astral Presence here, just for that extra little bit of sustain, and then focus on mostly the magic missiles. Now, this will be great for cleaning up heroes, right? If you're going for the hero damage, this is great. So, basic attacking a enemy recently hit by magic missiles deals an additional 191 damage. If 3 magic missiles actually hit the target, the third one deals an additional 274 damage. We're gonna be going, well, we'll go way for, well, actually no, I'm going Disintegrate just because I want to showcase the other one. I'm gonna be going Cannoneer as well, just because it will give me additional, like, basic attack and ability damage. I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Mirror Ball because it will now fill 5 of them. Look at this. Right? That makes it so good. Like, this makes it so much fun to actually mess around with. That actually single-handedly almost always kills them. Look at this. I will pick you the pure power here as well, but let me showcase to you the Mystic Missiles here. So, where are you, Arthas? Alright, we'll try and make sure we hit Arthas here for the most part. Look at this. Look how much damage that does. Like, it's a stupid amount of damage that you get off of these magic missiles. And keep in mind, I mean, even though it was pretty similar to the damage that Arcane Orb does, it's the cooldown is way shorter, right? You just need to make sure you're aiming it relatively okay. So that's pretty interesting. Now, I'll be toggling the minions off once again. I'll also be toggling on the reduction on the cooldown. So what do we pick? We pick the Archon mode. If you've played Diablo, you know this ability. If you played a wizard in particular, activate this to enter Archon form, allowing you to repeatedly use Disintegrate, but you cannot be using any of your other abilities. So I can now activate Archon mode, right? And look at this. It doesn't time out or anything. There's no timeout here. I can keep on using this, I can move around while this is going on, and on top of that, I can cast my Disintegrate pretty much non-stop. There is really no cooldown on this whatsoever. I mean, I can once again move forward. There's a 1 second cooldown, I suppose. You actually outrange forts apparently as well. And you can just, you know, sit back, relax, and deal a heck of a lot of damage to enemies. Now, this is obviously cool. It looks amazing. It can probably be super powerful as well. But since you lose track of your other abilities, you're gonna have to make sure that you obviously, you know, snap out of it in the correct timing as well. I found it to be not that amazing. Tal Rush's element seems to be superior, just because you get just so much more sustain off of it, as long as you're tracking your abilities quite well. So as far as a final talent selection goes, that I will be running when trying out this hero versus actual people some more, I'll be going for the Astral Presence here. I'll go for the Charge Blast, the Seeker, gonna go Disintegrate, gonna go Cannoneer, gonna go for the Mirror Ball, and then also follow it up with the Tal Rush's elements, which just seems to be an extremely well-rounded set of talents. Not sure if it's going to be the one that they will be running in competitive, but I would be surprised if she doesn't get played in competitive, because she's so good. She's so powerful when played correctly. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't checked out the gameplay video yet, I will leave that as the very first link right below the like button in the description of this video, so you can have a look at that as well, because we obviously got to be playing against real people as well, just to showcase a little bit better what she is all about. I want to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!